Hey, what's going on, Nation of Doers? In the last podcast, I was talking about how to increase profits. This one, I'm talking about how to increase productivity. So productivity, profits, those are two very, very, very important things in the business world. And a lot of times people spend so much time focusing on increasing their profits that they forget about productivity. Productivity, again, and I'm pausing here. My mind just shifted, and it shifted to this whole thing of entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship, I want to get this off my chest now, is so much more than just passion. Passion is very, very nice. It's very, very nice. It feels really, really good. But passion is not enough to run a business. You need to have an understanding of your ideas. You need to have an understanding of what people want. You also have to have an understanding of what people are willing to pay for, and you also have an understanding of, can you execute and can you turn it into something that allows you to be paid and to either live or as at least a side revenue off of something. Like, it's much, 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 much more than passion. So for some reason, my mind wanted me to say that, so I said it. So now going back to productivity. Productivity is something that it takes a lot of work, but once you have developed a system and process for productivity, it literally takes on a life of its own very, 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 very fast. It's very similar to how you can increase profits. Like, as I talked about the other day, when you're talking about increasing profits, you're looking at being able to put yourself into a situation where I talked about scrubbing customer accounts. I talked about systems and process. I'll always be talking about systems and process because people need to really understand that's the meat of how to run businesses. But in that process, you got to really be able to look at things from a productivity standpoint as well. So there's this thing called the Eisenhower Box. It's very simple. It's very, very, very simple. But what I notice is a lot of the simple things people overlook because they're simple. And it's crazy. There's so many people that I communicate with, and there's so many people that I interact with, that maybe not even just through my communication, but just through the business. And what I see are the most simplest things, and like, they won't do them. And I'm like, what in the world? And then they're like, there has to be more to it. I'm like, no, there's not. Or someone on the team is like, that's it. And they're like, no, it can't be that easy. Like, that's that simple. So, and the problem with that is that, like, it seems like there's a wiring out there that pretty much is like, no, it has to be complicated for me to be able to execute off of it. It's like, no. And Eisenhower Box is just that. It's a really, really, really simple matrix based around important and urgent. That's the entire thing. And then you have a do, you have a don't do, you have a delegate, and pretty much, like, I'll save this for later. But the most important thing is a business owner needs to understand what's important and what's urgent. A lot of times, a business owner will put everything as urgent because they feel like everything is urgent. That's not the case. It's not the case at all. So with the Eisenhower Box, what it teaches you is what really is important, what really is urgent, what should be done now, what shouldn't be done now, what can be delegated, and what just take off of your plate altogether. So the reason why I'm telling you all of that is I'll have a picture of the Eisenhower Box. That'll probably be the picture of this actual episode. But what you can do is look at that matrix, and there's a bunch of them out there. They all do the exact same thing. There are so many businesses where their entire business model was based off of something as basic as the Eisenhower Box. So when you're in the process of looking at productivity, when you're in the process of looking at your business, in October is a really, really good time, as I talked about in the previous podcast, to really deep dive into your business and deep dive into things that you're looking to accomplish. You really, really owe it to yourself to deep dive into your productivity. So now productivity is something that you're doing every single day. So take a few minutes of your day. And when I say, I'm not even going to say a few minutes. Take 30 minutes in a day. in a 24-hour period, allocate 30 minutes on your calendar to look at the Eisenhower Box. And when you look at that Eisenhower Box and you look at the task that you have assigned for yourself or you have assigned for others, take a look at it and put it into the Eisenhower Box and determine, is it important and urgent? Does it belong in the top left category? Does it belong in the bottom left category in regards to delegation? Or does it belong in the top right where, this is important, but it's not urgent? Or I don't even need to be focusing on this at all right now. You'll quickly be able to see that a 30-minute session focusing on your own productivity is going to do more for you than trying to figure out some elaborate program or process that has all of these pieces. No, just do the Eisenhower Box and you'll find out really, really quick, like, wow, like that's it. Like, yes, that's it. And it's crazy. People won't do it. And it's like, oh, I feel so sorry for those that they have this mindset of like easy is not going to bring results. And it's like, my goodness, like when you form a foundation based off of simplicity. So like that's something that I wanted to do. Like when I left corporate America, I wanted to. There's a lot of things in corporate America. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of stuff that you got to go through. And I was just like, my goodness. Like, okay, I got a project. Here's what I need to get done. Who do I need to speak to get this project off the ground? Here's how much money I need for this project. Here's the results that are going to be expected from this project. Done. But you got to put all the corporation around that idea. So with small and medium-sized businesses, you don't have the red tape that the corporations do. It's you, it's your team, it's your customers, so that you don't have to deal with all of that. So don't make your life harder than it needs to be. That's it. Just don't. And do something like the Eisenhower Box and just take 30 minutes and focus on that Eisenhower Box, and you'll quickly start to realize, like, okay, we got this. But and then what happens is once you do that, you're one of the things that I know for sure is delegation. Owners, certain businesses, I'm not going to just say owners, but certain businesses and certain business owners have a difficult time with delegation. Now, the delegation could be like, I was wronged in the past, so I'm never going to do it again. Like, it's life. Like, things happen. What you have to do is look at the overall scope of work that you're allocating to someone, and you can't delegate the whole thing to them. Maybe delegate just a piece, and you take that other piece, and then you guys have an executable strategy based around a deadline to determine the end result off of that task. You do that, then you start to build up a comfort level with that other individual or company or whoever, and you start to realize, like, okay, now I'm going to delegate a little bit more because I'm seeing the work ethic. You're seeing whatever it is that you want out based around that specific task. So you cannot go around thinking, okay, well, I work with this one person and they just, did me wrong. So, no, I'll just do it myself from now on. You will fail. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You will fail. It's just a matter of time because you can only handle so much. So, don't fail, especially 2020. There's been so much failure as it is on all different sides of the equation. Don't be a business that fails because you're not willing to delegate. Do not do it to yourself. Do not do it to your loved ones. And do not do it to the future you. It's not worth it. Take the Eisenhower Box. Look at the stuff that has to go on. You're going to see that delegate in the bottom left corner. And you may be like, nope, I'm leaving that box empty. You will fail if you leave that box empty. So, how do you go about delegating properly? I've already explained it, but I spoke fast, so I'm going to break it down a lot slower to you now. You know what? We'll look at a system. We'll look at an electronic system because electronic system does not have human errors, or there's not human emotion tied to it, which is why I love systems. So take a system. You trust your email server to actually allow you to be able to communicate with other individuals, and then you're receiving a reciprocation off that communication back to you. Now, off of that email exchange, you have to do something to finalize that correspondence. There's a task that comes out of it that needs to be done, or it's just informational that needs to be filed away. But you still have to delegate that to something. So, and most of the time what's going to happen is there's some form of task associated with the correspondence before it's completed, even if it's informational, because you still have to have a task of doing something with that information. So take even something as basic as an email correspondence and delegate off of that task that you're going to create, and figure out a completion date for that task. That's a form of delegation. You can then look at that task and say, okay, this task here, is it important and urgent? No. Or it's important, but it's not urgent. And as soon as you say it's an important, but it's not urgent, delegate it. So find someone, anyone, and be like, hey, I got this little thing right here. That's how you start to build up opportunities for yourself. That's how you start to really be able to see, like, okay, I've delegated a task. The results came back, decent, or they came back great. I'm going to build off of that. Do not be the one to say, nope, I'm taking this task that has a very basic thing, and I'm going to add that to my plate of other tasks. Next thing you know, you're going to have so many little breadcrumb tasks that you're trying to accomplish that you're going to not have room for the important and urgent stuff that must be done now, because you've allowed all of this other stuff to stack up on your plate, causing you not to be able to be productive. So, I broke it down. I hope you understand. You can rewind what I just said and play it again. But I'm telling you, if you try to hold on to everything, you will fail. It's like, I hate to be so blunt, but I'm being blunt because it's 2020. The world is nuts. People are nuts. We got rioting going on all over the place, but there's still business to be had, and people need to hear the truth. Like, all of this red tape and it's ridiculous. Some of this stuff is really, really basic, and for some reason the basics people forget about. And I think they forget about it because they're too busy focusing on this other stuff, thinking that it's gonna do something for them. It's gonna move this needle. It may move the needle, but you're never gonna fully execute that needle, because you don't even have the basics in place to fall back on. So you may get a needle move. You may have had a needle move last quarter, but then you're now in the fourth quarter, and you're like, okay, I'd like to get another needle move. But if you don't have the basics of an Eisenhower box, let's say, and I'm not saying it doesn't have to be the Eisenhower box, but that's a good basic productivity tool to use, you don't have something to work with. So that means you picked up a little needle move, a little or big needle move in the third quarter, and now you're in the fourth quarter, and you're like, okay, like you're excited about stuff, but because you moved the needle, that means you have work to do, and now there's either procrastination sets in, or lack of details in regards to the needle move sets in, or you're just rocking and rolling, but then you can't move the needle again because you're so focused on that one task that you can't see the bigger picture, allowing you to miss out on the next needle move. This is where the Eisenhower box is so important as a foundational element to business. And that's why this podcast is the philosophy of small business. I'm trying to give you guys the basics. And when I say the basics, I'm talking about like tried and true, never fail, guaranteed to bring results basics. And it always works. It's not flashy. outright ugly in certain situations because it's just so, it's just process. It's just, it's not fun, but it moves the needle. And it allows you to develop consistencies that allow you to handle larger situations that come across your plate because you're thinking. So one of the things, and I'm going to beat this a little bit more because it's so important, and far too many don't do it. I spoke a couple of days ago on procrastination, and I'm bringing it up again. So you have a business. You've chosen to operate something that you would like to provide a form of revenue stream for you, either permanently or temporarily. You have chosen to put together, product or service. You've chosen to go to market and say, hey, market, here I am. But you don't choose to develop productivity traits to help you move the needle. Why? Because it's not fun. That's why. So people will procrastinate around the things that aren't fun because they're not fun. However, there's so much needle movement in the Eisenhower Box that it can become fun. And that's what I'm trying to get through in this podcast, is let the things that may not seem fun become fun. And then here's the other part. Think about the Eisenhower Box. There's a delegation box. So, if it's not fun, but it is important, but not urgent, delegate. So, how do you delegate productivity? You can delegate it through, it depends on how you operate your business, but you can delegate it through a productivity software that allows you to be able to bring in others into your business and give them a small piece of something that you want done that could help get something off of your plate so that you could focus on something else. In that process, here you are developing a team. And then if you have a team, if you're a company that actually has a team, you already have something in place. It may not be a full-blown piece of software, but you have some form of process in place to be able to establish and complete tasks. So the best thing that you can do is, while looking at that, not try to look at all the stuff that you need to do and only you can do it. Look at opportunities to develop your team, to develop your staff by delegating not the whole thing, but delegating a portion to them where you can still oversee and you can make sure it hits the expectations that you want, but delegate enough so that they can grow. You will have done so much for your business literally off of that alone, because you're moving the needle in regards to productivity, which has the potential of moving the needle in regards to top line revenue and for surely bottom line revenue. You're also developing your staff, and you're also allowing your staff to see opportunities in which they can develop additional skill sets which can help them be able to take more off of your plate. That's the Eisenhower Box. So it's simple, and it doesn't get done, but it does move the needle, and that's how it just works. And when you start to do it consistently, because that's another part of business, is consistency, and when you start to do that consistently, you will then have consistent increased productivity. Like, it's like crazy. Like, even as I'm saying these words, and I'm driving, so I'm not even 100% focused on the words that I'm saying, because I got to look on the road and I got to focus on the cars around me. I got to be safe. But I do this so much, I don't have to think. It just naturally flows out of my mouth. But it all comes back together. And this is what I want to try to help anyone that listens to these podcasts understand. The bigger businesses out there, they're like, yeah, this could be basic stuff. I'm sorry, well, this could be stuff that they don't feel they need to listen to. And it could be the case. But I guarantee you, let a medium-sized business go self-audit themselves in regards to their productivity traits, and do they have the Eisenhower working properly in their business? I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say 70% of those businesses would fail that productivity audit. Guaranteed. Because in the process of growth, you start focusing on growth. You start focusing on the top line and the bottom line of the business, and you may not so much focus on those indirects in the middle that really are what helps increase your positive net profit margin. So again, even for medium-sized businesses, something as basic as the Eisenhower Box in regards to a productivity tool to help you be able to be efficient and be able to continue to increase productivity with your employees, with yourself, with your leadership team, with your shareholders. If you're a nonprofit business, it's the same. And then when you self-audit that bad boy and you actually see what happens from your own self-audit, which you don't have to do, and I'm going to help some individuals out when I'm talking about the self-audit, because again, that's another thing where people are like, the work associated with that. No, like take one task, take one basic task that is done on a day-to-day basis. Every single day that task is done, and put that task into the Eisenhower Box. So let's say, I don't want to go into specifics because that's going to be too detailed. Just take one task. And when you take that task and you say, okay, who's responsible for this task? Say, it's employee 6. And employee 6 is responsible to do X, Y, and Z associated with this task. That employee number 6 has to then be able to have an importance and urgent, an importance and not urgent, a due later, or I'm not doing at all because they can't, because they're missing pieces to be able to do that task, or if there's something that needs to be delegated either to a piece of system, either to a pen and paper or to a piece of software, there's still delegation that has to be done with every single task, and audit it. One task. I guarantee you do that with a couple more tasks, you're going to automatically start increasing your productivity within your business. I guarantee it. Why? Because it's tried and true. There are certain things in business that always work. You just have to be willing to roll your sleeves up and do the work. And this is where my podcast, those that are really paying attention, it's called Nation of Doers for a reason, because I want you to do. And again, I don't want you to do it all by yourself, because you're going to fail trying to do it all by yourself. Like, you won't have success trying to do it all by yourself. Focus on the Eisenhower Box. Put yourself in a situation where you're developing your team. Well, you're even developing your collaborations. You're developing those even around you that are helping you run your business so that you can be successful. You see what I'm saying? Like, it just works. And something as basic as the Eisenhower Box allows that to happen. Now, there's some other tools that I will go over in later podcasts, but I really wanted to dive deeper into this so that people really get to understand what the Eisenhower Box is all about. And I didn't create this. It's been around. Eisenhower created it, and literally he didn't create the idea. He was just smart enough to literally put a picture around the idea for people to wrap their heads around. So pictures are really worth 1,000 words, because when you're able to take literally 4 boxes and put those boxes together, and then put important, not important, important, urgent, and like put that basic matrix around it. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that's it. That's it. It literally is it. So, all right. Well, I'm getting ready to get off the highway, and I want to focus, because once I get towards the city, I don't want to be doing a podcast. Well, on the highway I'm good, but no, I'm not doing that while I'm driving in cities with traffic and stuff. So, again, love you all. Happy Friday. I hope everyone is doing good out there. Stay strong. I'm going to keep coming with these podcasts. I'm going to start lining up some guests too, because I don't want to just, when I listen to these, I just don't want to hear my voice all the time, because it's kind of weird. But this information is so important I have to give it to you. I have to. So I'm also doing it in a newsletter article. So for those that like to read, they can be able to read the information. For those that like just to be driving down the road or walking or whatever and pick up the information, it's here. What I ask for you to do is to do. And then feel free, contact me, let me know, like, hey, I'm working it, or I'm struggling, or I've picked up certain pieces, but I'm kind of not grasping this. Like, no problem. Like, this not stuff that you gotta be concerned about. Like, okay, what's the cost? No, there are people out there that just like helping people. You just gotta ask. So ask, and then do. It's just that simple. So talk to you guys later.